this loud thing tramples right by our tent, because I'm just trying to get it to step one more time. They end up turning on each other and killing each other. My name is Connor Flynn, and I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but now I moved down to the Panhandle of Florida, and I run Bigfoot Anon. I have lived out of my car going after these crazy mysteries and wild treasures, and it's led me from coast to coast in America. I started up in Ohio, where we had the Grassman. The Cuyahoga Valley National Park is a huge, dense forest with waterfalls, caves, cliffs, and tons of mysteries. So we'd always camp out there and look for waterfalls, and then we had some weird circumstances that kind of pointed us in the direction of the Grassman. Right around the corner from my house was the witch's ball, and it goes by many names. The people call it the granite spear, but the most famous thing is the witch's ball of Myrtle Hill Cemetery. And right around the corner from my house, a woman actually poisoned more than a dozen of her family members and then threw them in a well. And then when she was caught with enough arsenic to take out the rest of the city. Well, after she died, they buried her under this giant sphere that is totally magical. And me and my buddies used to go out there at night and test the waters. And they say when it's hot, it's cold. And when it's cold out, the ball is really steaming hot. And then rain and snow also do not fall on it. I love the paranormal and these supernatural things because it brings interesting people and interesting things together. I believe that cryptids, paranormal, supernatural, and just real life are all connected.
Let's go back to the Grassman. This is my first time hearing that. So, what exactly is the Grassman? What does the Grassman look like? How does it act? Give me details on the Grassman.
Yes, the Ohio Grassman is the Buckeye version of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, but they do say it is a lot bigger than the normal, Pacific Northwest Sasquatch idea. It is a lot more bigger and angrier. And then there's a lot of reports and stories from Southern Ohio from moonshiners and farmers that talk about them having their stills wrecked, and then of course their farms just ruined and turned upside down. Mountain Monsters about a decade ago did a fun episode trying to investigate it. But a lot of us people from Ohio will tell you the Grassman is a little different than, say, the skunk ape or even the rougarou from New Orleans. The Ohio Grassman is not scared to show himself during the day. And that's what one of our encounters were. We were walking from Brandywine Falls, and then we went to two of the smaller falls, Blue Hen and then Buttermilk. And from that walk, you do about a mile through the creek. And about halfway, we smelt something horrible, rotten, dead. And we were searching around for like a dead fish or a raccoon in the water. Couldn't find anything. And then sure enough, we just kept on carrying along. After we get back from the waterfall, that same exact spot smelled fresh, like there was nothing wrong. So we feel like we were being stalked by the creature. I've also had some other strange encounters after dark, even in my own property. We were lounging one night. We were doing mushrooms for the blood moon eclipse. Of course, it was like a 2001 Space Odyssey, really just coming to life. But me and my friend were laying in our backyard with my two cats and just looking at the sky, really trying to become one with the universe. And we heard something approach from the right side of the yard on the other side of the barn, where all the apple trees and the blueberry bush were. And at first we just thought maybe it was the cats got over there, and then we got a visual on them. Maybe we thought it was like a deer or a dog, but we got up, we started walking over there, and boom, both of us were just hit with this internal message of just stay away. And we just really internalized finally surrendered after that, and were no longer curious and just laid back down. And we never heard it, disperse or anything. And it's just weird how sometimes these forces can have an overwhelming feeling of calmness and can really take over your body and mind. And that's why I think they're the true alpha and the true leaders of the food chain, or even this, plane.
So you've actually seen the Grassman.
I haven't seen the Grassman with my own two eyes, but I have had an encounter, a visual encounter with a wolfman type creature in the same area. I don't think it falls under the Grassman category, just because my two friends that I shared this visual encounter with had a daytime encounter with the creature, and they said it was more werewolf-like. I'll get a little bit into that one. So it was a Friday night before a Saturday golf league with my friend Alex and Jake. And Alex and Jake live by each other, and they actually had a daytime encounter with this creature. They were being driven home by an older adult from some kind of practice, and they saw something walk across the road, and they thought it was a deer at first, but then it was on two legs, and it went up a hill at an alarming rate, and then just disappeared. I heard about it for weeks because, they knew that I love these horror stories and just unsolved mysteries. Finally, the night came that we were staying at Alex's house, and we were shooting pool in his basement, and he had a walkout basement with these glass doors that it basically goes all the way into the woods, about 40 to 50 yards. And that is some dense woods as well. And of course, he lives by a place called Sleepy Hollow. It's not the original Sleepy Hollow, but as kids, it's all the same, and it really just stirs up the plot. But we were shooting pool for a couple of hours, and then just suddenly all of us just start getting the chills and start feeling weird. So we turn off the lights and we move to the side of the basement, and we're peeking through this little window, and we see this hulking shadow figure down where it starts to dip down. And it was bigger than anything I've ever seen, and darker than the night itself. We sat there for a few seconds. Of course, it felt like minutes or hours, frozen in time. We dove away into the steps for a little bit. Then we go back, and there was nothing there. We tried to have a normal night after that. We watched Saving Private Ryan, and I just remember being curled up in a ball with my back to the glass, just being so scared that it was going to come back. And I must not have been alone, because we all went upstairs and slept in Alex's room. And then the next morning, Alex's mom asked us, "Hey, why don't you guys sleep in the basement in the playroom?" And we told her what happened. And she was very strict and by the book, and no funny business at all. And she basically authenticated our story by saying she's heard a bunch of man-like owl calls through her window at night. So it was pretty crazy how it all came together. It still was a dark shadow to me. I couldn't really see any features, but I definitely could tell that something was there.
What made you think that this was a werewolf type character then?
Just because of their description of the daytime, and that's how we basically always said it was the Sleepy Hollow Wolfman. But then again, Wolfman, Grassman, it could have just been a large cryptid. And as a child, maybe we were just confused and just went to werewolf, because that's what you see in folklore and basically all the Goosebumps stories and all that.
What you actually saw was more like a dark, really dark, large shadow.
Yes, that's all.
About how far was it from the door?
I'd say about 40 yards, 40 to 50 yards.
How long did you experience that shadow?
I'd say from 5 to 15 seconds.
So it was just moving swiftly on past the doorway.
No, it was standing still, stationary, just in the woods, basically watching us. I want to think that was watching us probably for the whole time we were down there, just, enjoying us from a distance.
So it's watching you, and then you observe it for about 5 to 10 seconds, 5 to 15 seconds, something like that. Did it just turn and walk away? Where did it go?
I'm not sure. We dove into the steps, so we basically got so scared that we had to move out of sight. And then when we went back, it was gone.
And that was an isolated experience. You never saw that again?
No, not that creature again. And Alex and Jake never did either.
So of your
But there was other weird reports out of that area, but no one ever called it a werewolf or anything.
right. So on the Grassman or Bigfoot on steroids, the Grassman, let's call it that. Um, you haven't seen it. You've heard something that you suspect was that?
Yes, yes. I've seen multiple strange things around my house and in Ohio that I guess a glimpse of it, could be Grassman, but I just basically chalk it up to just uncharted cryptid or just strange animal.
Do you actually do research on this? Like go out in the woods? Are you boots on the ground kind of researcher on this subject?
Yes, yes. I'm honestly one of the most active researchers out there. I'm always hiking, camping, fishing, using very strange techniques.
Tell me about the strange techniques that you use. I love to hear about those.
Yes, we are not shy about using meditation in the woods and basically trying to lure these creatures in. Uh, when I was living in Lakeland, Florida, I was part of a musical, and we did all these different stretches that Aleister Crowley actually did to get his group together. And we tried not to get too dark with it, but the bonding was very important. And I believe that when you go out into the forest, they can just basically feel you out, just energy. So they could just see you as energy pockets. And instead of four different individuals going out, if you meditate or maybe start breathing together and come together, maybe that would be a whole different obstacle that this creature would be interested in, viewing. So basically anything to just raise this creature's curiosity or just to make them feel a little bit more comfortable. We like doing mushrooms in the forest on Friday the 13th, Halloween, special eclipse nights and planetary alignments. We try to do just what the ancient people used to do. There's this type of tea that you can make with Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds that you crush it up and you turn it into a tea and then you drink it, and then you can kind of basically have one foot in this reality and another foot in the spirit world. And a lot of ancient people would use it to contact their relatives or ancestors or just the ancient ones. But we like to think to try to communicate with these creatures in the forest, which we think that Sasquatches are just other type of people that are even more earthly than us. But we've also used it to try to locate missing people, just basically anything that can really stir the pot and to bring frequencies and vibrations together. I was in Flat Rock, Alabama, right by Evergreen, Alabama, and we got some of the best evidence from the eastern United States of three beings actually singing to each other. And it was really cool. We had a dish recording one of it, and then we had a recorder back at camp, and both recorded the sounds. Doug Highcheck actually heard the sounds and co-signed them, and you can find that on YouTube. I'll definitely make sure to send you the link. So we just put ourselves sometimes in harm's way and try to become one with the forest or just a whole nother cryptid in itself out there. But yes.
Do you believe these creatures are flesh and blood, or do you believe they're somewhere in between or both? What do you think they are?
I believe the Sasquatch, yes, they are a little bit of both. But then again, so are we. Just us human beings, we have felt love, we have felt deja vu, we have felt magic, we have, thought about somebody and then they called us. I think it's all electronics, it's all electricity inside of us. We're all just magnets and different machines. And then, of course, we come in two different forms, the physical form and the spirit form. And that's just the science. And I like to think that these creatures have just been in tune with Earth a lot longer than us. So they're just more in tune with the frequencies and light. So it might appear for us that they just disappear and are magical, but maybe there is, a true earthly explanation of it. And then, of course, if you just look at their hair and camouflage and how they can interact with our electricity, it definitely shows that there's something that they work with. And then if you just take the top of the food chain with just how echolocating with bats and whales, and then basically the infrasounds with the large cats would hold, I think that they're just a combination of all that with the superior intelligence of a human with only responsibility to survive. So I think they're just like the ultra humans. They're ultra earthlings. And I think we're capable of magical things too, but we've been tuned down and so suppressed over time that, we just live the lives we live.
So they lots of times I hear people talk about orange lights, kind of electrical energy, like you were talking about when they see a Bigfoot in the woods or whatever. There's sometimes sparks, sometimes a glowing or almost a sparkly kind of orangish light. Have you seen any of those, or do you understand anything about that?
I've definitely seen some lights in the sky and in the forest. I didn't really associate them with the Sasquatch at the time, but of course, if the Ancient One or if the big man is out there, then maybe they are the ones causing it. But you've definitely heard about the Dyatlov Pass, how those people saw orange lights in the sky and then they were mutilated and just discarded. And then other people, I've heard missing 411 cases where a dad and a son are missing in the woods, and then they'll see random headlights, and the dad will run off and think that they're about to be saved, and then go back to the son, and he's gone. So yes, I have seen these lights, but I don't associate my lights with the Sasquatch. But I have heard plenty of reports of them being able to create these lights or type of orbs in the forest. And I would definitely say do not follow the orbs, but respect them.
So do you think that this Grassman is a dangerous character then?
I don't think they're out there looking for a problem, but I think they can be territorial. And of course, there is a bunch of hillbilly hunters out there that are territorial of their land and their moonshine still. So I do think there is these battles, and I've heard reports of these difficult times, but I don't think people should be worried. But I do think they should take precaution and, make sure their animals are safe. And, if they don't want them getting too close to the house, set up cameras and motion detector lights, because that can deter them a little bit. But of course, we've heard the reports that they somehow get past all the motion sensors and are still, knocking on windows and pounding on the side of trailers.
You mentioned earlier about doing mushrooms and things of that nature. How much do you think that might distort your perceptions, or at least put it into a non-physical form of perception?
Yes, it definitely does. And of course, some people, they hear mushrooms and they just throw it all out the window. But of course, the ancient people were using the experiments to open up parts of their brain as well. And then these creatures, I feel like, can locate that. But yes, definitely. Once you're doing that, it all becomes physical. And that way it's a good thing in those kind of groups. When we do have a couple people tripping on mushrooms, we do have one or two people that are still in reality that can keep us fixed and keep us on that one single variable at least. But I also rather have encounters and have these experiences than have not. And it's just up to us to try to accurately retell what happened, or just accurately write it down early in the morning that next morning, just after a whole excursion of events, But I think it's just part of it. And those are very select nights, those are just very special occasions. Most of the time it is just, stone sober, me and my notebook and my backpack out in the woods.
Well, when you have these encounters and you do you notice any significant difference when you are doing like the mushroom or some other form of drug and when you're not? Is there a significant difference between your experiences?
Yes, when you're tripping, it's a lot more real. It feels like it's meant to be. It feels like it's like a movie happening right in front of your face. When it's just sober real life, it is very subtle, paranormal and extremities in the woods. It's all just very subtle. You won't even believe yourself for the most part. You'll see something out of the corner of your eye and you'll just write it off. You'll hear something and you'll just explain it off. That's why it's always good to have a camera rolling, a chest cam going. But of course, then that puts you in a whole nother thing of now you have electronics and maybe some certain experiences won't happen to you. So I believe that you have to go out there all different avenues and then really just document it and compare it. Because I like going out there hiking with nothing, no electronics. I love going out there running the chest cam and documenting every single second I'm out there. And then I also love basically going out there and losing my own mind so I can just become one with the forest. And I believe it's important for all of them to be investigated.
So, do you believe in mind speak? You've probably heard of that term where there's telepathy between you and the Grassman?
Yes, I have not experienced telepathy or mind speak with the Sasquatches that have been at least direct. I definitely feel like I've taken guidance from the forest and nature and my inner spirit, which maybe that's all the same thing as the big man as well. I'm not sure. But yes, I definitely believe in mind speak and telepathy. I have experienced it in just my normal life when you're in the same room with somebody and you don't even have to say something. And again, we're all just energy and we're all connected at the tree of it all. So yes, I do 100% subscribe to that. Our minds can connect even when we're apart, and through dreams as well. I've definitely had some strange Sasquatch encounters in my dreams. One, I remember I was at my grandparents' farm and we saw like this really ugly black one, and it just screamed at us just so loud. And it was me, my mom, and my grandpa. And I don't know what that meant. And then another time I was running from like the Pacific Northwest into the water, and then one like chased me out, and I just hid underwater. And but I don't want to give these creatures a bad rap. Of course, I feel like dreams and nightmares, go to the extreme very quickly. But I've been out in the woods hundreds of times, thousands of times, and had pleasant experiences with nature and haven't been run out too many times.
Well, tell me about the times you have been run out.
All right. Well, one is at a place called Look and Tremble. I don't believe this was the Sasquatch. I thought it was like a madman, a crazy man. But it's along Chipola River, which is a historic river for Sasquatch and skunk ape encounters. There's a BFRO report at the Chipola River. But there's a lot of Native American burial grounds there. So there's a lot of stories of spirits. And there's a hidden treasure there that they say that these bootleggers, they hit a big lick, and then they were at the fire celebrating, and then they were drinking, and then they ended up turning on each other and killing each other. So somewhere their treasure is at a bootleggers camp. So I love doing that. I love going out there and looking for treasure. But in the same spot, I was on a nighttime hike, and there is a story of a headless ghost that just relentlessly looks for his head. And I never honestly gave too much thought to it, especially when I'm out there during the day. And there's Sasquatch and there's snakes and there's alligators. There's other stuff you got to worry about. And a headless ghost, I'm not too worried about it. But I'm out there hiking, and I think I was on TikTok live. So I was like recording and just telling stories about the whole area. And I got pretty far in there, and it just started feeling very weird. And it felt like I wasn't alone anymore. And then I started heading back, and it felt like something was pursuing me. And I just remember being really, 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 really scared. And it was like a silent pursuit. Didn't hear anything, but could just feel it like something breathing down my neck. And And luckily I was recording. It's so funny when you're out there in the woods and you're just recording, and when you're live, that might make you feel a little bit more comfortable. But even when you're talking to your GoPro and you're just talking to the future audience, at least you can, convince yourself that you're okay out there. But I ended up making it. I ended up being, alive, and drove home so scared. And the next morning, I'm just like reflecting back on it. And I was like, man, like, was it a homeless dude or something? And then I thought back to the headless ghost, and it all just kind of came together. Maybe he was just like looking for his head, and those are his active hours. And maybe I was out there to maybe be able to help him or guide him or something. And then at the end, I kind of felt bad about it. I was like, oh, I should have got over myself, and maybe I could have had a very, enchanting experience. But that was one time, and I definitely feel like I got in my own head 100%. Another time was day 2 at Flat Rock in Evergreen, Alabama. The bad thing is I was too far away from the house, so I wasn't able to run out of there. The only thing I could do is fall back asleep. But the second night, after the first night of recording the singing, and we recorded them chirping to each other a little bit, the second night, Flat Rock, our buddy who lives there, he was trying to persuade us to stay closer to the house because one of the guys left. So instead of 3 of us, it was now 2 of us. And now we each had a tent, and Flat Rock Kenny was trying to get us to stay at his house. He's had other investigators stay the night, and it gets really crazy. And, the first night we already had activity. We're like, no, we have to go through with it. Well, it's about 11 o'clock, and we take the golf cart out there, and we hear something just running beside us on the trail. And both of us were basically so scared, kind of, or like paralyzed mentally, that we didn't even really want to talk about it because we knew we still had the rest of the night out there. But we end up crawling into the tents, and Matt, Supernatural Spectrum, he ended up falling asleep pretty early, like 11:30 at night. So I'm out there alone basically, and for a few hours, and you can just hear like weird vibrations like owls and frogs. But after a while, I was like in and out of sleep, and I don't know how I heard it, but this loud thing tramples right by our tent, and I wake up to it, and I yell, "Hey!" because I'm just trying to get it to step one more time so I can gauge kind of where it's at, so I can at least know where the attack's going to come from. But after a while, I ended up again being so calmed into just falling asleep that I just passed out. I wake up to the next morning, and Matt is freaking out, saying, "My tent's moved. My tent's moved. My tent's moved. My tripod's knocked over." And his whole tent was all messed up and rattled. And he said that he felt inside his dream that he was just being lifted up, and it was pretty crazy. And he was still in his tent, and I run out there, and I'm like checking all the surroundings and stuff, and he's pretty stirred up. And then the following weeks, he ended up really having some bad time at his house, and he thought he was cursed. And I'm very thankful that I didn't, feel all that, but it was really extreme being right next to him during all that. But he had Jessica Jones, a remote viewer, like look into it. And she said that she saw like an ancient presence in that forest. And he did this, I guess, meditation that he opened up a portal of Pan, and Pan is like a little forest nymph that I guess could maybe be a Sasquatch, but it's more like a goat man, like some kind of horn type creature, mischievous. And I believe that the Flat Rock boogers, the actual Bigfoot, were probably protecting us from something that intense. What I got from the whole thing is maybe something was really messing with him in his tent and lifting him up and terrorizing him. And again, it could have just been a very bad nightmare when you're sleeping in cursed territory or outside, and anything is possible. But whatever that trampling was, maybe that was, the boogers or the Bigfoot in the area, and maybe that, cleared the energy, or maybe it was all together. But it was just a crazy experience to be a part of. And we had the recorders going, so we got me yelling at a noise at the middle of the night, and some other strange vibrations. But yeah, the whole area right by the Kaneka River is very strange.
So do you think were you kind of like chased out of that site? Do you feel like that they didn't want you there?
Matt feels that way. Matt feels like he can never go back. I've been back, and I've been alone back there, and I like it. So I feel like I was protected. I think it's a good place. Sadly, one of Flat Rock's dogs have been killed, but again, that may not have been the boogers, but yeah, Matt thinks he can never go back again, which those kind of places, if I feel that way, I feel like I have to go back and get my answers. So at least, fool me once, all right, but you're not going to fool me twice, because I'm coming back hard. So I don't feel like I was ran out, but especially at that night, like at 4 a.m. when I heard that run by, I was like, oh my God, I wish we camped right by his house. Like, we bit off more than we could chew, and I'm glad, because I survived it. Matt, he's forever changed.
So the dog, what happened to the dog exactly?
One of their dogs, weeks before I was ever there, he has two dogs. One of them was never seen. They both ran off into the woods, and one was never seen again. And then the big black lab, who we like is the Bigfoot dog, who we see him in his controlled perimeter, he was found like deep in the woods somewhere that I don't believe he would ever be naturally. But it was my buddy Kenny's brother's dog, and he was heartbroken about it. Kenny's wife has left the property. Kenny's mom lives next door and has had a creature bang on the side of her house. And there's actually a video of it, and it got like 5 million views on TikTok. Now he leaves out apples and dog food for these creatures. I think my buddy Flat Rock is in a weird middle ground of he wants more evidence, but then again, it has like had real life effects on him that, are pretty negative.
So what else?
Sadly, that's a big thing in this world. Like, you could be a good family that just has something happen, and then you end up being a targeted person in the community, and people don't ask for their encounters at all.
What else have you researched? What other types of paranormal things have you researched out there?
We love river monsters and lake monsters. That all started Lake Erie, South Bay Bessie, the Lake Erie monster. Of course, in the 90s, there was $100,000 on her head because a couple fishermen went missing. So every time we would fish in Lake Erie or any tributary like Rocky River, Black River, anything, we'd be like, oh, the Lake Erie monster, Bessie. And then, of course, Ohio River, where my grandparents are from, they have stories of a muck man or a mantis man. And I've seen some large shadows in the water, and just giant catfish that they say there's catfish and sturgeon that are bigger than, VW beetles. I haven't seen them that big, but I like to think they're down there, especially right where all the coal mines are, and just all that energy, brings them. But then, of course, down here, I moved from Ohio down to Florida, lived out of my car, looking for all these strange creatures. And now I live in the panhandle of Florida, and there's the Pensacola serpent, where about 50 years ago, there was these 4 divers diving in Pensacola, and 3 of them sadly got eaten. And there's some scary reports about it, and a lot of other fishermen have told reports of sea dragons in the Gulf. But then in Carabel in 1896, they actually killed a 47-foot long sea creature. Some people say it was an oarfish or ribbon fish. Other people say it was a sea dragon like Nessie. And I've actually went to the Carabel Museum and was asking them about it. And they like emailed me some pictures, which we ended up debunking the pictures. They were recent pictures of an oarfish that was killed. But they said that they're going to actually set a little, showcase or display up for the cryptid at the museum. And I said, that's great news or a great idea, just because there's cryptid hunters and there's all these paranormal enthusiasts from coast to coast all around the world. And it would be a great stop for them to stay in Carabel. So it's very cool. And then another one is the Lake Powell monster. Right behind my grandparents' house, there's this lake that leads into the bay in the Gulf. So it's definitely brackish water. But in 1958, there was a attempted attack on a I guess it would be a water skier, but I think they were on their knees. So it was a knee skier. And this creature almost attacked somebody. And luckily they were saved or were able to outrun it. But multiple people saw it. 1 year later, they ended up finding a carcass of like a 40-pound specimen that resembled this sea creature. And then they sent it to the Smithsonian. And then sure enough, no reports ever heard back. Just like all the mud fossils and mound builders and giant skeletons out there, you don't send it to the Smithsonian. But yes, I love the water. I love the woods. I love going into the caves. I definitely believe that the movie The Descent is kind of like a true story about all these cave creatures. We live in skyscrapers and have deep basements and bunkers, but there is labyrinths, miles of caves underneath our feet. And in this area, in the Florida Panhandle, there's tons of caverns and stories of cave monsters. Donnie Miller had a encounter with the Mariana skunk ape, with the Mariana caveman, and that's basically the town that I live by. And he, is a man of God, and he's had a lot of encounters. And he actually was abducted by aliens as a kid, and they put a metal piece into his arm. And when he broke his wrist, one time a doctor saw it, and he's had all these encounters with frogmen and Sasquatch and cavemen, all from this area. So it's pretty magical to hear other people who have went to the extremes that are running into these cryptids just as well. Right in this area as well, less than 10 miles of where I sit now during this interview is Ocheesee Pond, where in 1873, the Ocheesee Pond wildman was actually captured by the locals. It was harassing the women and children. And then after a while, Civil War veterans and Native American gatherers, they teamed up and they captured this creature right in an area called the Devil's Half Acre. And then they took it to Tallahassee, and the governor said, no way, take them to Chattahoochee Hospital. And supposedly they kept him there for 3 years. And they did a bunch of cruel and unusual experiments on this John Doe, and they reported that he passed away. But I like to think that maybe he escaped through the tunnels and made it to the river. But one of my friends actually worked at the hospital and lived at the hospital, so I had exclusive access, and I went to 2 of the locations that he was supposedly buried at, which is one was at a Native American cemetery, and then Andrew Jackson put a building right on top of it, and then another one was deep into the woods, right by where they've built a old golf course. So it was really cool, and I wish more people knew the story of the Ocheesee Pond Wildman. It was on the front page of the New York Times back in the day, but no TV shows or not many people have been talking about it. So I feel like it is a blessing or meant to be, guided by the stars, that I have been brought here. I've been on such a strong, long journey, strenuous, living on couches, living out of my car, living at rest stops and state parks and sleeping where I can. And then it brings me less than 10 miles away from where a Sasquatch was captured. And it's like a story that is still waiting to be hatched and spread. And Ocheesee Pond is also a very, very, very sacred spot. I've talked to a lot of the locals there, and they still have encounters to this day. One of my friends, he's an older man, and he has a hearing aid that he made himself, and he can tune it, and then he can tune it to these frequencies that he can hear them breathing. And his son had an encounter, and the 80s, and he's like 7 years old, and he drew a picture of him, and the picture is just amazing. And another man said he found I guess a cave or like a den that he found two Native American mummies. And of course, when I hear that, I'm like, maybe they're Sasquatch, maybe they're wild people, maybe they're just Native American too. But I do think there is a line that crosses at one point, just like David Paulides wrote about, the Hoopa tribe up in California. They lived with the Sasquatch people just up until a couple of decades ago, and then there was a huge falling out, and then they were exiled into the mountains. But there's some extraordinary stories out there that are still waiting to be told, and there's mountains of evidence. And I love to contribute, my fun evidence. We've recorded a bunch of cool sounds. I've taken a couple cool pictures that have been in the newspaper of some blurry skunk apes, and then we found 2 DNA samples. One was in Mayaca, right on a Native American like showcase thing. It was a orange hair that when you put it under a microscope, it's like green, black, gray, clear. It's on Tim T's YouTube. He did a video putting it under the microscope. And then another one, I was with Tim T in the Green Swamp, which is basically like the mecca for the skunk ape. And we found a bunch of hog hair, and we found some hair that looked a little different than the hog hair. So we bagged both of them, and we compare those under a microscope. And a couple of our samples have been sent out, to universities, but then other ones are just, held on to compare to other researchers or, other collectors.
So what do you think is the strongest evidence that you've found to show any of these monstrous creatures exist?
I guess we'd have to go on the audio that we got at Flat Rock that Doug Hychek was really impressed about, because it goes to certain frequencies and volumes that human beings can't recreate, and you get 3 of them interacting with each other and kind of going up and up. But that is just strange sounds in the forest, and unless you're really, really deeply invested, it's not going to prove much. Nowadays, a picture or a video is the best chance you have, but sadly, with AI and Photoshop and all this, new tech, even those can kind of be thrown out the window. Sadly, reports even like the Ochizupan Wildman, that was a creature that was kept, and his files are on board. Sadly, it feels like the powers at bay are holding those down and not letting those release. So the best evidence I have, I guess, would be the footprint casts and the hair that we found, just because that's something you can hold and touch and compare with other things. But I have shared a lot of evidence out there that, independent people have given me to broadcast out there. I have a lot of research and evidence on my TikTok. And I know some people say TikTok, but it's basically the largest collection of digital Sasquatch evidence in the world, because I have scraped all the groups and all the researchers and all the evidence that has been out there, plus all the independent people that have sent it to me. I have posted very clear face shots that come in a sequence of 4 that show movement. We've posted videos of independent people that, show a creature hitting their side of their house. Just the evidence is out there. There is some great pictures and there are great videos. If anybody does, want to search it, Bigfoot Anon on TikTok, you can just search, 300 pieces of evidence, and some are already proven hoaxed or not authentic, and then others are still out there. And that's all we could do, is just really spread the awareness and spread the data out there and let people decide for themselves.
Well, that's true. And when you're not out in the woods, when you're not the one doing the research, a lot of these things sound very fantastical, kind of out of our normal realm of reality. And it's difficult to bring those 2 worlds together when you're chasing monsters and you're finding evidence of all of these creatures here and there, and then you live in a world that most of us live in, where you're not doing that. What would you suggest would help to bring these two worlds together, that there might be more understanding that some of these things really are happening out there?
I would just definitely recommend people. I definitely understand some people aren't physically or able to get out in the woods, but I definitely recommend people just to hit the nature path, or go fishing, and just let nature take hold of you and see how many unexplainable things just happen in an afternoon. Or I recommend people talk to someone that has had an experience, someone very similar to themselves. If a housewife is interested, find another woman or responsible man that can connect with you on that level and paint their visualization to you. Of course, I know that I'm a crazy looking hobo hippie dude that lived out of his car, so I know that a normal high level professional person might be hard to connect with me. So for a high level professional person, I'd recommend them go talk to a couple of these people that I've spoke to that, are teachers or professionals or managers at their job that have had an incredible experience that they really can't explain and just, want help getting through. It would just be very hard for a person to stand there and, claim this is fake if they're talking to a real person that, is even going to therapy because of their encounter. It's crazy. It's such a deep wormhole. Just have empathy, be patient. The whole thing with Bigfoot Anonymous, it started off as like anonymous reports, and then a couple of my friends joked about Alcoholic Anonymous. Dude, it's a safe place that you can come and tell your stories and you won't be laughed at. I've heard crazy things. I've done insane research, so I've heard most of it, and if I haven't heard it, I'm open ears to it. But I would never shut someone down or close them off because their story seems a little odd or out of the ordinary. I think those are the true details that are so important to really wrapping all this together. Because if I have an encounter that is so strange and just one little detail that I'm able just to recollect, if it connects to someone else in Brisbane, Australia, that's having an encounter with the Yowie, then, it's a positive human thing. So honestly, it's just be honest and be open. And as a human being, we have no clue what else is out there. We're still debating on our creation. We're still debating on our afterlife. We still have dreams when we go to sleep and we create worlds. So I would just try to get them to think bigger and just find someone that they know that has had an encounter, and trust me, it's closer than you think. A lot of people in your family tree, a lot of Thanksgiving dinners, one person at that table had something happen, and when it happens to someone that it becomes a lot more realer. And over the past just 5 years of being the Bigfoot Anonymous official, I've seen people grow and have encounters and jump to this side. Haven't seen many people jump back to the other side though. I have seen it be too much for people, of course, because it is very overwhelming when the whole world is telling you it's not true, it didn't happen, it's not even possible, it's not out there. But then real life told you, something extraordinary is out there, something scary is out there. And I just want people to know I'm an open ear. It's a safe place. Bigfoot Anon is a safe place to come with your stories, with your questions.
So that's Bigfoot Anonymous?
Yeah, that's what I started, Bigfoot Anonymous, and then I shortened it Bigfoot Anon. But yeah, I do Bigfoot Anon, and I'm a day-to-day paranormal researcher, but also just, trying to figure this out mathematically, scientifically, spiritually, and every way we can.
Exactly. Well, I thank you for being here today and sharing all this information with me. It is truly food for thought and definitely in depth on the paranormal aspects of Grassman, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. There are monsters in the woods, right?
Definitely. And I just want everybody out there to be safe when they're in the woods. Let people know where you're going. Definitely do your research and just, live life because it's extraordinary. And be proud, be proud of what you believe in and what you've experienced. And if you guys are, anybody's into reading books, I wrote a book called Big Brother Bigfoot, and it's all about our big brother in the forest and my 16 encounters or adventures across America that I've dove into all these strange cryptid creatures. And I definitely recommend people to research your area, because there's cool stories everywhere, and just spread them. That's how it all started with me. I just wanted to tell cool stories of cool places, and I think if there was an army of me, for every city or every region, the world would be just a little bit more informed and just a little bit more fun.